We're back, and this is part 2 of raising the factory running boards on my 23 F250. I've already finished this passenger side right here, but I'm going to show you what I did and use the example on the driver's side. Going over the changes to the running board bracket, if you remember in the first video, I showed you what the factory running board bracket went. This was 2 inches longer, and we cut that down and re-drilled these holes, and we actually cut this section and re-welded it so we retain these factory holes. Some people confuse what I've done here, that you could buy the F150 brackets or the trimmer brackets and do this same thing. The problem with the F150 brackets for me, though, that hole would be here, and that's going to bring this running board up about 1 3/4 inches more. So I have a light that will go over that a little bit in the video so you can see exactly why I did that, and also why you may not want to raise it that high depending on your needs, where you may not be able to get a work boot on that running board. This bracket here on the right, this is one of the templates that I started with to see if this was going to work out. So I did not do anything to this one because I wanted to modify the ones that came off the truck after I determined this was going to be good. Again, I mentioned in that first video that I purchased 2 of these online so I can cut and modify them in case it didn't work, that I could just leave my factory brackets alone or just change this height until I got it the way I liked it. So this is what the factory bracket after I made my modifications would look like. The difference you'll see now here on the left, this is the bracket that I have had bedline sprayed. So the only difference between this one and this one, full bedline sprayed front and back. So it covered all of the welds and everything. And I believe these brackets now are going to outlast the truck. They turned out really good. I do like that finish better than this factory finish. I believe this is just a powder coat finish. And I had a couple of nicks on here just from riding down the road and rocks and things hitting them. Much of this is not going to be exposed now that I've raised it up another 2 inches. But I like that security knowing that these are not going to rust, they're not going to rock chip or anything like that. And I use my local Linex company to spray these for me. On the first video, I showed you where these brass inserts came out of the plastic when I took the factory bolts out. Now I'm going to show you how to put those back in. I took the factory bolt, put a 10mm nut on there, leave about 1/4 inch thread exposed, and you're going to tighten that brass insert on there. Once it's on there, use this nut like a jam nut. So what you do is you put this epoxy around the thread. I don't know if it holds that great into the plastic, but I do know it holds good to the metal. So just to give it a little bit more bite into that plastic, you're going to, once you have that on there, you're going to tighten this into there until it's completely tight. You want to hold this side, loosen the jam nut, and take the nut all the way out. The key there is you want to make sure that that insert is flush with this hole. And then any residual epoxy that may have come out or squeezed out this edge, you want to take your razor blade and clean that up before you put it back on. I've got the epoxy on this brass insert, and again, that is that Gorilla Ultimate Epoxy. I'll have links for that in the description. Make sure that you're going in here straight, because you can tear up the plastic there trying to line that up. Once you've got it, you're just going to take that jam nut and rotate it till it's flush. Now that we're flush, put a 10mm here on the top, loosen that jam nut, and then take the whole factory screw back out. Let that dry. I give it about 24 to 48 hours, and then clean up around that hole. As the epoxy is drying on those threads, I recommend filling that little gap there with some of this Loctite super glue just to make sure it gives you a little bit more hold. And as it is drying or after it's dried, you can use a M6x1 tap to run back through that brass, cleaning out any of the old Loctite or any debris in there. Just makes the bolt running through there a little bit easier. And then the last thing I would recommend on this installation piece is take every one of these factory bolts, and you're going to run those through a tap as well. So I did that with the M6x1. This is a thread chaser here. Just kind of go through that, so that way you know you've cleaned all the Loctite and just wipe these off before you reinstall. I'm reinstalling the brackets back on the truck. I want to show you an issue that could come up and how you can avoid that and get through the issue. When you go to tighten these up or take these off, these studs up here, they could push back into the body. So you want to be very careful. As soon as you take these nuts off, go ahead and put a nut back on there so it doesn't go back through the body. If when you go to tighten them back up though, say this one starts to spin and you can't keep it held in place, take your Dremel tool, make a slot in the face of this stud right here. Then you can hold it with a flathead screwdriver and then tighten this up with your open end box end wrench. Over here on the passenger side, I'm going to show you why I couldn't use the trimmer or the F150 brackets. I knew I wanted these 12-inch lights right here by Diode Dynamics, so I originally installed those first. That was part of the whole design plan here. I also installed the Tough Skins lettering here on my running board because I wanted it to be able to be visible at night when I turn those on, or I also have underbody lights that come on and light this whole running board. So if I had used the F150 brackets or the trimmer brackets, it would have raised this another 1.75 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, and I would have blocked the light. I had a couple subscribers ask me about the boot test once I raised these running boards. Can you still wear work boots and get on this running board without opening the door, without hitting the body of the door there? Right here, this is an Ariat work boot steel toe. May not be the largest work boot, but these are some of the boots I've worn in the past. I still have about a 1-inch gap right there. So again, if I had raised this up all the way up for, say, the F150 or trimmer running board, I'd have been into the body here and probably hitting into this lower section. May not be an issue for you. You may not have steel toe work boots, and it may not bother you at all there. So for my application, I think that this was a perfect fit to fit the light and still be able to wear a pair of work boots without hitting the body there. I've got the driver's side complete. Just going to show you a couple of measurements there. There's that light again, so I still have enough clearance for that. Just a little bit of a gap underneath it. If you look at the dimension from the board about right here to that pinch weld, it's right around 2 inches there. So that opening gap is about 2 inches. And then again, showing you on this bracket here, if we use the F150 or we use the trimmer brackets, that hole would have been right here. So that would have been tucked up underneath the body, so that would have raised this at least another 1.5 inches, maybe 1.75 inches. Here's that boot. Somebody asking about that boot test again. You still have about 1 inch of clearance here, so your boot is not going to hit. If you look at that boot, that is a steel toe, we're saying the boot is maybe 2.25 inches tall, maybe a little bit more than that. It just really depends. So you could definitely still step on this board with the doors closed. Should be no problem with the door open. Everything's finished up, and I'm going to show you the way the running board lights look now that I've raised the board up. I can tell I've got a little bit less light coming down here onto the ground, but it looks like I've got more on the board itself, and I do still like that look. You can see a little bit of that light shining just underneath the truck. It's not completely dark out here right now, but it definitely looks good, doesn't change that up that much. Let's take a look on the other side for you. So right there you can see that light. Still looks good. I still have a little bit of light coming down right here. This light you see probably closest to the ground out here is going to be from the puddle lights on the mirror. But that light right underneath the board is what's coming through the side of the board there. So definitely still can use that. Still looks really good. Actually brightened that up, I think, on the board a little bit. Here's the look with the 12-inch diode dynamics bars on. Definitely like that look. It doesn't hinder the light in any way. And it does, you may not be able to see it on camera, but the letters on the step boards do shine a little bit when that's on. So I do like that look. So like I mentioned, that is the whole purpose for not bringing that board up all the way close to the body. Still be able to use those lights. I'm going to have a separate review on those. So stay tuned on the channel. I'll show you how I added those on. They're on upfitter switch number 3. This is the final night view with the running board lights on and the 12-inch bar on. I think that raising these running boards gives it a nice look, very sleek. It's not too high and it's not too low, and I think it matches that two-wheel drive valance well. Remember, we only raised these about 2 inches, so if you're wanting to go higher, that's when you would get the F150 brackets. If you're wanting to stay lower, I recommend staying with the factory brackets. Hope this information was useful or helpful for you, and if it was, please subscribe and share, and that's to the point.